All right, here we go. It's another week, which means it's another What the F happened. This is the week of the new president taking office. The inauguration happened Monday. We all watched it, or at least some of us watched it. Some of you were pissed. Some of you were happy. Some of you were trying to find faults. Doesn't matter what it was. It's done. It's over. And the new administration is underway. And that's one of the main topics we're going to cover today. We're going to cover a lot about the markets. We're going to cover what Jamie Dimon is saying about the markets. We're going to cover what's going on with all these tariffs, with these executive orders, what they mean, and how many more of them are coming. We're going to talk. I want to talk about Trump's changing attitude about tariffs on China. All of that coming up. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. All right, folks, we are back at it. Another week, another What the F happened. This show is a weekly show we do every Wednesday morning where we rant, we rave, and we will argue about what's in the news. I'm happy to say that Mr. Nagy is back in the seat. It feels like he's been gone for a month, probably only been 2 sessions, but welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Yeah, it was from before Christmas. I mean, we Christmas off. I know you did a New Year's Day show and just been traveling the last couple of weeks. So it's good to be back. A lot obviously been going on. We have a new president. A lot to get into with that. Snowing in Florida. Who would have thought? It's burning down California and Mother Nature's mad right now. So a lot going on in the world, and it's good to be back to kind of get into some of this here with you today, Chris.
Yeah, I was just told that you guys are getting a little bit of snow. And you know what I find funny? Like, I don't know how much snow you guys got, 3-4 inches or so, maybe a light, what we would call like a light dusting, but a light dusting in Florida shuts down the airports, shuts down the roads, shuts down existence as you folks down there know it. And up here, we're like, we're getting a foot, 2 foot. No big deal. Yep. Everything's on. School's in session. But now school here has been closed all week because of just frigid temperatures. On my drive to the gym this morning, it was -5. So wow. I figured I should probably wear a hoodie. So I put the hood up this morning and I put little fleece gloves on. So that was about the only changes I made. Back to you.
Well, just for the record, it's not snowing here. It's actually 65 degrees outside and not too shabby, but North Florida got snow. It's kind of cool to see. Yeah, it's kind of cool to see like Pensacola Beach meets the snow, the ocean and the snow, or now the Gulf of America. We no longer have the Gulf of Mexico. So see the Gulf of America meeting the snow is kind of cool up in northern Florida. And you're absolutely right. I was doing some business with somebody in Georgia, in the Atlanta area yesterday. They said basically Atlanta, Georgia, the whole state's basically shut down. They got a little bit of snow. Louisiana, see New Orleans getting snow. It's definitely pretty cool. It's definitely not unheard of. I think it happens, every 10, 15 years or so. We get through one of these cycles where we get the cold stuff and the snow in the areas that doesn't usually, but it's always a lot of fun to kind of see the videos. And it's a fun break on social media from all the politics that have been politicking over the last week with the inauguration and everything. So fun little light part of the weekday.
I agree. Well, we're going to have a bunch of comments coming in. We got some coming in from TikTok up here. We got Stephen Hart, who's making some comments. We'll get to those in a second, but I do want to kick this off with a headline news article. For any of you that know who Jamie Dimon is, he's been in the news a lot. He's the basically the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, and kind of has a big say. He's been in banking over 40 years. Got a kind of an interesting history. Had a couple health scares, which has kind of opened him up to kind of talk differently. But in the news today, I'll just read what it said. It says, Jamie Dimon says the U.S. stock market is kind of inflated. You don't say. How about that, Stephen? Like, is he the only one in the banking industry saying that it's kind of inflated? Because it is beyond inflated. But he goes on and he notes that the risks are from deficit spending, inflation, and geopolitical upheaval, which are all things we have literally been covering on this show over and over and over. Now, here's the interesting thing. We got a new president that just came in, and the market's been rallying every day. I mean, and not just a little, a lot. But it is, I want to make the precedence. If you go back and you look, this is just par for the course. This is pretty much the common path when a new administration takes over or an existing administration takes over. Depending on the inauguration, the executive orders, and some of the things that are being said, the markets typically do fairly well. Now, one of the reasons the markets have been so good is his stance on tariffs, which we're going to cover in today's show. But I just want to point out that, everybody really needs to look past just what the markets are doing and look at what is coming, because and I'm going to show some charts. If you go back and you look at the S&P 500, it should be no surprise to any of you that right before every big crash, every big recession was a boom, was this big upward move. And I did a YouTube video, a couple months ago, where I showed the last 5 presidents, and it showed the markets, and it just blended them. It showed the market performance right before the president took over, right after, and it showed the outcome after that. And in every scenario, especially presidents winning second terms, which I know he's not winning a second term, but this is his second time in office. He's only one of 2 presidents to ever have done that. It always shows the markets going down and having a correction, and right in line with what Jamie Dimon is saying here. So how many of you believe that Jamie Dimon has some information that would give him insight into what's coming? I mean, I'd have to believe the CEO of one of the largest banks out there probably knows some things that we could only wish we knew. Stephen, what's your take on Jamie Dimon and what he's having to say here?
Yeah, I mean, it's, he's reading what's going on. I think everyone's knows that everything's overinflated and at all-time highs, and there has to be a pullback. I know there's been a lot of, okay, let's get Trump in, let's get Trump, doing his thing with business and allowing business and innovation and markets to grow. So we have this ripping tide. I mean, I live in Florida, where if you have a strong eastern wind and the waves blowing in, you get this strong outgoing tide. It creates these rip currents and these tremendous waters in the intercoastal that's leading into the ocean there. And I feel like that's where we are right now, kind of with these tidewaters. It's, we have the market that should be having this pullback, this correction, but we have Trump and everything he's doing to keep everything rocking and growing. And they're kind of like fighting right now. So I feel like everyone's kind of waiting. What's going to happen? Like, where's this going to go? How long can this sustain? But it seems like people like Jamie Dimon and the rest of them all agree. Warren Buffett, hey, something is going to happen. So we can't time the markets, but let's be prepared for when that does happen regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Like and if you read the article, it's, the article's on all the news stations, but CNBC is the one I'm looking at right now. It kind of just goes through and gives his insight as to why he's thinking the way he is. But I mean, make no 2 ways about it. Like when I'll just use my wife. Like my wife, knows Trump's policies very well. And she's saying, hey, the markets are going to be good. Everything's going to be good because of what he's saying. And I agree. But the question is, when is that all going to work? And that's what Jamie Dimon's saying. He said, he's essentially saying we've got so many headwinds that we're faced with right now that the tailwinds, this administration's pro-business, pro-America standpoint are not going to happen. And it's almost just this battle of headwinds and tailwinds. And, right now the headwinds are certainly outnumbering the tailwinds. So that's I figured just a place to open up. Stephen, one other thing I do want to talk about, and this was, I think, an interesting one. I got to find the article here, but it was about TikTok. And I know this has been a really controversial topic. As you all know, your TikTok shut down. I know this because we have an exchange student, a 17-year-old exchange student from Netherlands living with us. And you would think the world ended on Sunday when there was no TikTok. Like, didn't know what to do with herself. Like, maybe I'll do some baking. I'll do this. But like, that's kind of what happened. And there's a lot of businesses and a lot of people that earn an income from what they do on TikTok that literally that shut down. Now, it was short term because Trump came in and basically said, hey, we're going to keep it around. And I think the number 75 days, and TikTok has to sell the U.S. operations in 75 days. Now, remember, TikTok is a communist run, a Chinese Communist Party run site. If any of you have ever read the terms and conditions, well, I know what it says. It's scary, but pretty much you just give them carte blanche to your data, your info, and your patterns and your habits. I no longer go on TikTok at all. We post on there, but I do not spend any time outside of just putting content up. And if it went away tomorrow, I would say, see you later, sayonara. But the whole thing I'm bringing this up for is right over here. This is the first time I'd seen this, and I'll just pull it up. I'll present this slide. This is from a white paper we subscribed to. This was kind of shocking. Right here, TikTok is now banned in Afghanistan, China. Funny, huh? TikTok is banned in China, India, Iran, Jordan. Sorry, I don't even know how to say that one. North Korea, Somalia. How do you? Uzbekistan, I think is how you say that, and United States, which is no longer. Sorry, I butchered those names. I should know how to say those, but it just goes in and just shows you kind of what's going on. Now, this is a controversial thing because there's a lot of people right now that think Trump is making a mistake doing this, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, does TikTok sell to Musk or one of the others? Is that going to happen? Stephen, what is your take on that?
Yeah, it's a good discussion, really. I mean, because on the one hand, it's owned and controlled and basically a psyop. It's basically a spying program on the American public, and not only a spying program that they have access to all of the data on your phone. It allows in their terms of service for them to not only connect to your phone, but connect to your entire network, including your computers, personal computers, and everything else. And what they're doing with all that data, who knows? But on top of that, when they did have TikTok in China, and you look at some of these other social media platforms in China, what they do with those is it's all educational. It's all very conservative content. It's not like what we see with TikTok, where it's they push these algorithms to put like the transgender, all the ideology, all the woke ideology, all the stuff. That just the American people has put a memorandum on by electing Trump again, but they push that and they put it in front of kids and young people and very influential minds, and they do this on purpose. It's a psyop. And so on the one hand, you have that argument, which I completely agree that should not happen, and the Communist Party should not be controlling and owning this app and doing that with it in the United States. It's terrible. But on the other hand, it's like where if you give the government the right to come in and shut down an app, that people are using freely, and the freedom of expression and speech and everything else, that's a slippery road as well. Like, where is that line? If they do it with TikTok, could they then go do it with X? It's a completely different thing, obviously, but could it allow them to open up that door to do that? So it's an interesting argument, but at the end of the day, it's the way it is now. It's terrible for America, period. And so I'm for, Trump saying, listen, either major changes occur with this, you give up ownership and this is done the right way, or goodbye. And, Elon said it best. Elon said, listen, it's not right either. Like, they don't allow X in China because of free speech and everything else, but we allow their TikTok that pushes all the bullshit, in America. So that's just not fair. And I agree with that argument as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to come over to some of the comments because we got a lot of them right here. Stephen Hart on Instagram said those 100. We started by talking about executive orders, which is where I'm going to go next. But he said the 100 executive orders is just a way to keep the opposition front entertained. A lot of that is hard to pass, but they need to be addressed and have to make choices or battle to choose. Smart. And then we got Diala said, China, love you long time, or so you think. Stephen came back and said, Democrats in the establishment, also some typos in here, we're ready with the number of counter lawsuits in black. Oh, yeah. Let me stop right there. Stephen, I haven't been able to find it, but my wife had informed me that on the inauguration day, there was already lawsuits being filed against Trump. Did you hear anything about that?
Well, in regards to what? 6
states or something like that?
Well, I know that there's kind of pushback against some of the executive orders with some of the deportation orders and some of the ICE and some of the immigration policy. I don't know the specifics. I can look it up though.
Yeah, no. So exactly. And then the last thing Steven said, are we just talking about weather here, alluding to us joking around in the beginning sessions? I guess, hey, listen, some folks just want us just to dive right into it, I suppose. Over here
so Chris, real fast on that. So, New York Times is coming out, 22 states sue to stop Trump's birthright citizenship order. So that's one of them. And birthright citizenship basically is what is the 14th Amendment, I believe. It says that, if a person has a baby, on U.S. soil, that is a U.S. citizen, but there's also verbiage in there that says, according to the jurisdiction of the land or whatever. And so there's the argument to be made there that, if somebody's, let's say that China ships a boat over with 100 pregnant women, it pulls up on a beach and they have babies, are all those babies really U.S. citizens? And that's not the way it was, really laid out and what it was meant to be. And they say that they wouldn't have added those words, per the jurisdiction, if they wanted to truly be open for everybody. So I think that, that'll definitely go to the Supreme Court. We'll see where that goes, but that's what that is.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good to know. I mean, and listen, like, I'm sure there's going to be more stuff like that. I mean, make no two ways about it. Some of the executive orders are, we're going to go over, a handful of them today. I've got a unique news letter that came out that I want to get into, but some of them are just, people are just going to not like that. And I don't know what to say. I mean, it's kind of like it's his show right now. So just like somebody over here said, buckle up, and that's it. And Lego 1234 coming in from YouTube is happy that Trump won, said his stance on crypto is nice. And I think everybody in the crypto space would agree, like Trump is pro crypto and pro Bitcoin and everything else, saying he's going to win his third term. Let's see. Is there anything else? Ellison started talking about mRNA injections for cancer. They think you might have, let's see, I got nauseous. Yeah, not again. Exactly. Yeah, the pardons, right? We got to hit on the pardons, Stephen. I'm just getting into.
Yeah, I mean, what a day one that Trump had. I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the inauguration or not. I mean, it was a pretty good show, I thought. It's funny to watch some of the different reactions, past presidents, of Trump himself, the people that Trump's built around him, people like Elon Musk. His son Barron was really cool to kind of see there. And did you see the one video of Barron leaving and Biden was smiling? And Barron came up and whispered something in his ear, and Biden's face was just like
what does everybody think he said? Like literally, like, what do you think he said? I think he said, you should have pardoned yourself. That's what I think he said.
Okay.
What do you think he said?
And then Biden thought about it like, oh, he might have been right. I mean, Biden literally pardoned everybody else except for, which we'll talk about. But I don't know. That was pretty cool. One of the parts I just like, one of those feel-good moments was Carrie Underwood when the AV cut off. And I just related to this because, Chris.
Yeah, this is just every event we do.
We do so many live events and different events that, things always go wrong with the audio video. So it was kind of cool to see it on that stage, something go wrong. It's like, oh, we're not the only ones. But Carrie Underwood just going, hey, let me just sing it. I'll just acapella this shit. And she absolutely killed it. And seeing people sing along, like, to me, that was a really cool, like, feel good type moment. I feel like she almost stole the show. But, seeing Trump do his thing there. And then I don't know if you watched, but he then went to sign the executive orders. And while he's signing these executive orders, he's doing a press conference. I mean, this is unprecedented. For 90 minutes, he sits there signing executive orders, answering questions from reporters, talking about the executive orders that he signed. And I loved it when he got to the one where he pulled us out of the WHO, the World Health Organization, which is one of the biggest scams in the entire world. But he pulled us out of that, thankfully. And when he got to that executive order, though, he looks down, he raises it, he goes, oh, this is a big one, or something like that. Like, you got to love it. And so, just to be able to do that while multitasking, answering questions, like, what a difference compared to the last 4 years where I don't think Biden ever had a 90-minute press conference ever.
No, he didn't. Never once.
Right. And Trump's doing that on day one, just making immediate change. And then he goes from there. I mean, how many different balls and parties did he go to that night? A couple, 2 or 3 of them. Did you see the one where he had the sword and he's dancing to YMCA, the Village People, and he's cutting the cake with the sword? And It was just a beautiful, beautiful day, in my opinion. It was really cool.
I was asleep by then. I didn't see the sword, but I did catch the interview on Fox News with Kid Rock, and like you watch Kid Rock and you're like, oh, he's a punk, but like he actually spoke really intelligently, which was kind of surprising. Like I wasn't expecting. I mean, he's got a cigar and he's got a cold beer, very on par for him. But when he was asked questions from Hannity, like his answers were just well said. Like the way he articulated them, how he answered them, I was impressed. I was like, oh wow, someone's been doing their homework. And then you had Hulkamania on there. What are you going to do when the Hulkster comes for you? Love it. I want to come over here. Lynn Green. Lynn's been around the campfire forever, coming in from YouTube. She said, and I'm going to kind of tell a story after this from my TEDx talk, but my nail guy tried to tell me I should have stayed in the market. I would have made so much more money. And then, Lynn said, yeah, that's the advice we all want right now. Ha ha. Then he looked at his phone and his stocks had gone down. So like, there's that old story about Kennedy Sr., getting his shoes shined, and he was getting stock advice. And you all know Kennedy was like just a very good stock trader, like very much in the know. And he's just getting his shoes shined. So they didn't probably know who he was. And they're giving him stock tips. This is back before the Great Depression. And then the story goes on to say that, Kennedy, went back and sold all of his stocks. And then right after that, the Great Depression crashed, and the age old thing is who are you taking your advice from, and he basically said, if the shoe shine boy is giving me stock advice, then it's time to get out of the market. Well, if the nail tech is giving you stock advice, then it's time to get out of the market. I cover this all the time. And I probably said this last week. Everybody wants to buy when the markets are going up. Everybody wants to buy when everybody else is doing it. Everybody follows the leader until they all fall off the cliff. I mean, it's the age-old stories. And it's just right now is probably one of the riskiest times in the last decade that you could be buying into the markets. It literally is. You're buying at all-time highs. You're buying into just the most insane FOMO, just the most overpriced stock prices, probably arguably in history, maybe not before, maybe it's rivals before the Great Depression, but all of that is absolutely how you all need to be looking at this. When things are going up, that's when you take your gains off the table. And then you're always going to have to know there's going to be a lot of people that say, oh, that was dumb. You should have stayed in the market. You would have made so much money. But those are the ones that when the market tanks, they lose all their money. And then they're the ones, that say, oh, well, I should have, I could have, I would have. It's just, you got to pick the exit. You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And I feel like I'm a broken record on this. And I know a lot of you are like, yeah, but Chris, if we took your advice last year, we would have missed out on all the gains. Yeah, but the whole story hasn't unfolded. We'll have that same discussion eventually. I don't know when. And, hey, listen, I guess there's a lot of people that say, well, eventually the market's going to go down. Sure, market's always going to go down and it's going to go up more than it goes down. True, but this could be a big one. I mean, it is so inflated. It's just not even funny. So I don't know. Did you lose or did you just not? If you make a bunch of money, the name of the game is, can you keep it? That's literally what the whole premise of investing in stock should be. It's not about making it. It's about what do you keep? That's the thing you really need to think about is what are you going to keep? Maybe you're going to miss out on gains. I've missed out on tons of gains, but I sleep good at night knowing that my money keeps going up over and over and over. Maybe not as fast as the nail tech guy, or the nail guy who was doing Lynn's nails, but my money's always growing and it's always steadily climbing. And I sleep good at night. I don't have the risks that so many folks do. So take that as just some advice. Lego said, my wife is smart. Yes, too smart. We'll just leave it at that. Let's see. Dawn of a new age in America. Praise Father God and Lord. Absolutely. Thank you, David. Let's see. COVID was child's play, just a test run. This is the big one. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. A lot of stuff coming out about that. Musk will buy it. I'm just kind of looking at this. I love Shane's comment. I don't subscribe to pronouns, but for now, hold on. I don't subscribe to pronouns, but for those that do, mine would be, we won. Well played, Shane. Let's see. Just trying a lot of good comments coming in here. I'm just trying to cherry pick them and try to find something good before we move on. Stephen, if you want to look at them, I'm going to kind of move on to the next thing. I want to show something.
And actually, one I just saw come up, this actually just texted to me, and he said, I'm watching you guys now. This always reminds me when I see you guys keep up the great work. And I'll just share the little photo he sent me. Followers will never know how hard the leader tries to create path, and shows us up that way. So appreciate that. That was from Dexter, actually.
Oh, thanks, Dex, man. Appreciate it. Yeah. Stuff. Leading and kind of paving the way, it's so hard. I can speak to that in a big way. And that picture means a lot to me. I mean, Stephen, knows it better than everybody else. I mean, we are always out in front, literally blazing the new path. And I think a lot of times like that blazing the new path, it's risky. It's dangerous. It's unknown. You have no clue, and it's bloody freaking hard. I mean, we just are embarking on something right now in the BYOB space that literally is a path that we're going to blaze that nobody else has blazed yet. I mean, we are literally way out in front, but it is tiring and exhausting, but that's just what's necessary.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chris, we were on last night, 7 p.m. on Zoom calls, discussing that, back on this morning for 90 minutes prior to this call, discussing, the future and all new stuff. I mean, so it's continuing to not only do what we do the best out there, but also grow and show people what's possible.
Awesome.
Cool. Let me show you this. I love, it's a great transition into what, Trump decided to do, bringing Elon on and some of these guys to create DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. And I was just looking at, the official website and what it says. It's pretty interesting. I mean, just to kind of share this real fast. So establishing and implementing the president's Department of Government Efficiency, otherwise known as DOGE, which is literally the perfect name for it. If you guys follow cryptocurrencies, Dogecoin was kind of a meme coin with a little dog, but it's something that Elon Musk always talked about and said that he was behind, things like that. And so DOGE, now the Department of Government Efficiency, with him backing it, it's kind of like a full circle moment. It almost makes you wonder, are we really in a matrix of sorts? Because coincidences like that, I just don't know how it's real life. But the authority vested in me as president of the Constitution and laws of the United States, hereby order, and just talks about what this executive order establishing this new Department of Government Efficiency does. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, already we're seeing stuff coming out on what they're doing with this. I mean, I believe on day one, I'll flip over to this, on his first day in office, Trump expected to take action to return federal employees to in-person work. And he did sign that. So just shows you is it more efficient to work from home or not? I don't know. What are they going to do with this? But just to give you an idea, I mean, look at some of these offices, top 10 emptiest government headquarters, Department of Energy, a million of useful square feet, 1.8 million square foot total building, can hold almost 5,000 people. 2023 daily average was 8 people. I mean, so, is this the most efficient way to use these offices to manage and control these employees? I don't know, but they're going to go and they're going to start looking at that. A lot of these programs that have been starting around DEI and, creating entire bureaucracies around DEI and whatnot, that immediately got stopped. And I believe they've now put a hiring freeze and paid leave for all DEI employees while they try and dig into this and figure it out. So a lot of changes happening, on literally day one.
Yeah, I just saw that about the paid leave. I mean, that's literally day one. You're just cracking the whip. It's pretty wild. Let me come over. I just want to show this. I know a lot of you like seeing charts. Some of you actually hate them, but I'm just going to show it anyway. This is a chart. I've shown this many times, but it just goes back 90 years. So up here, this is 2025. When you get over into it, or 2024, I should say. I can show 2025 in a second, but all I want to preface is right here, this is the Great Depression, this giant down. But look what happened right before the Great Depression. Okay. See that giant ramp up, and then it just let loose. Every period of time where you had a big fall, right over here, this is in the late 30s, big rise up, huge fall. But then we come over here to more modern times right here. Okay. 1973, big fall. But look at it before that. This one might be a little different because you can kind of see it went sideways, then down, and back up and down. But then when you really get more to modern times, we come over here. This is the .com run up. Look at that sucker. Very similar to today's times, because a lot of the S&P 500, like the Magnificent Seven, or really, I just did a YouTube video. I think you all like it. It goes through and talks about the similarities between Great Depression and now, the concentration in the markets and how similar it was during, the roaring 20s. There was a concentration of the stocks inside the indexes, and how everybody was piling into just a small number of stocks. And then you fast forward to today, the S&P 500 is the 500 largest companies, but it is literally 60% of its gains come from 8 stocks. Think about that. 60% of the S&P 500's gains come from 8 stocks, and 10 stocks pretty much dominate the S&P 500. So that's a concentration. So there's really nothing to fear about the concentration, except when the music stops. So buyers immediately flip and become sellers. And if they become sellers of 8 or 10 stocks, because the majority of the money is in 8 or 10 stocks, you can understand what happens and when it pulls back. Well, the same was true during the .com. There was, I don't remember the number, and I could do the research, but there was a small number of tech stocks everybody was plowing into. And then when things let loose, and it was a 3-year run. I remember this is when I entered Wall Street. It was a 3-year hiatus fall. But look at before, giant run up. Okay. Before the pandemic, giant run up, and then that let loose. That was a little different. Okay. And we didn't call that a recession, but look where we're at now. Look at this run up. Like, the only other period of time, I'd have to go back further, and show you the roaring 20s, but the only other time that literally rivals this would be the .com run up, this one right here. And that was a 3-year fallout, like hardcore. So all I'm saying is, listen, like, what is the probability of it going higher and higher and higher? I don't know. I can't predict the future, and I can't time the market, but from where I sit, what I know, and what I study, this thing can't keep going much longer, and it probably won't. So I just wanted to kind of show you a visual of that. All right, where should we go now, Stephen? Should we go into, we'll talk some executive orders, or let's come over and let's see comments, and we'll see what direction to go from there. On Instagram, we got Elon's inauguration salute, which is said to have an affinity with Nazis. I saw that. Stephen, you probably saw that too, where he was, Elon's a unique person. Probably is gifted. I don't know how else to say it, but doesn't think the same way we do. You can't have a normal conversation like we would normal people. But if you watch that, he was so excited, so in his moment, and he says, "My heart goes out to all of you," and he kind of did that. And the media, of course, CNN and those companies captured it and said he did the Nazi salute. There was an article that was done, I saw it on Instagram, where it showed all the other presidents that did something similar, where they kind of pointed out, and it did that, and they captured all these still photos of Barack Obama. They did Biden. Who else? They did Clinton. They did Harris, and they all had the same thing. Just a photo captured it the right thing. Hell Hitler was kind of what they're saying. But yes, I saw that. There you go. Oh yeah, here Harris Waltz. I mean, it's literally just, if you capture the photo at the right place, you could make anything. I mean, there's Hillary, there's Harris, there's Elon. But if you just put the audio to it, he said, "My heart goes out to you," and he did that. But the media is having a field day with that. So yes, we did see that. I mean, an affinity with Nazis, I hardly doubt that. I couldn't in a million years believe.
He wears a Jewish cross. He used to wear a Jewish symbol necklace around his neck every day to remind him of what's going on over in Israel right now and what happened with October 7th. And I mean, he was there at the funerals of these Jewish leaders. Like, it's absolutely absurd to call that guy. I mean, even the ADL, as horrible as that organization's become, even they came out and was like, "Listen, guys, this is just silly. Like, stop." So it's just, and you would think that Chris, you would think that these news organizations would have learned their lesson over the last year or two. Just talk about losing credibility. I mean, they just have absolutely zero credibility anymore, and they do it over dumb stuff like that. It just makes no sense to me. It's truly unbelievable what they do.
Yeah, there's 2 really good comments I want to hit here. Jay Steele 650 from YouTube said, "Humanity has no idea that they are being led into the light side of darkness. It looks very good to your natural senses, but you won't be able to truly see unless your spiritual senses are sharpened." a lot of meaning in that. It can be perceived a lot of different ways, but basically just, it's don't believe everything you see, I think is one way to look at that. I like that comment. There was another one here from Younghart said, when you let companies buy back their stock, that allows them to put more value for themselves. This was illegal for many decades. Why are we allowing this? Well, I don't know. Tell me, why are we allowing Nancy Pelosi and all the members of Congress to actively and openly do insider trading? I mean, that would be interesting. But then Biden, I think, put the kibosh to that at the very end. Funny, because he was probably one of the ones doing it. Not going there. But yeah, it is very unique, and the other part about the buyback, and I think Lego hits this here, he said, it's disgusting. And companies borrow money at low rates to repurchase their stocks. So what they're referring to there is, like, take the banks. A lot of the banks were buying back stock. And banks have access to the Fed's balance sheet, which, as you know, the Fed controls monetary policy, has the ability to literally turn the printing presses on at the Treasury at any time to print more money. So the Fed can issue money to banks. And if the big banks have access to the Fed balance sheet, they literally can borrow at ridiculously low rates. And then they'll lend money to these banks or these big companies at these really low rates. These companies go out there, buy their stock back, and it's a better value for them doing that. So basically just making a spread. But yeah, I mean, that used to be illegal, and it is no longer illegal. We'll see if Trump does anything with that, but it's definitely a good observation. Let's see. You see anything else in there that we want to hit? Yeah, right. Shane said, I wonder who owns those 7 stocks. Could you say Blackstone, BlackRock, Vanguard? Any of those 3 would probably be a good starting place. I mean, BlackRock owns pretty much everything right now. I mean, what did I cover last week? It's absurd, like $17 trillion. Like, they have a piece of everything. Anyway. Anything else, Stephen, before we get into the Trump day one, I guess is what you'd say?
No, keep rolling, man. I mean, we got to hit on some of these pardons as well, because it's unprecedented.
All right. So remember, we're going to come back to that. So I'm going to literally, I read this a couple times. I don't know how to really kind of do this without just going into it and just showing it and reading verbatim, because I think that's the best way to do it. So right here, Trump's work has begun. You guys can read this, but he signed 60 executive orders and proclamations on January 20th. He's going to sign about 100 more in the coming days, which he began, more yesterday. He signed a batch of EOs even before leaving the Capitol. Stephen kind of hit on that, but let's just kind of go through these right here. And I'm just going to read them as they go. Declare drug cartels to be terrorists. This is more than a pro forma. It allows the president to use national security apparatus, satellites, surveillance, electronics that intercept, special operation forces, foreign intelligence sharing, instead of just being limited to traditional law enforcement. I mean, let's just do it this way. How many of you think that's a good thing? Put yes in the comments. And we'll do this for each one. Declare a national emergency on the southern border. Again, this allows special measures, including the use of U.S. military to fight illegal border crossings. If you agree with that, put yes in the comments. And Stephen covered this too, like day one. That was there. Actually, before that, they literally had military deployed out there. They're taking that very serious. End the catch and release border enforcement policy. From now on, those apprehended crossing the border illegally will be deported immediately and put in detention. Okay, you agree with that? Put yes. Direct the U.S. military to work with the Department of Homeland Security to fully secure the southern border. Put an end to offshore wind leases. This is the beginning of the end of the Green New Scam. And oh boy, can I not agree with that statement more, which I know pisses some people off. That whole thing, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Green New Deal, whatever you call it, was one farce, one giant farce. Nothing in there, in my opinion, did any good for anything. And it will also stop the killing of whales from sonic seabed testing. Open Alaska, we already knew this, open Alaska to drilling oil and gas, drill baby drill, terminate the electric vehicle mandate. So EVs will still be around, but they will lose the government subsidies and government mandated purchase and use. Now, this is interesting because this is almost like a kick in the nuts to Elon. And if you look at Tesla stock, it's way down because of this. But I mean, I don't know whether you agree with that or not, but I mean, how long did we have subsidies for electric cars? It was a long time. I mean, it was heavily subsidized. and it looks like that's ending. All right. Withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. This will end the efforts to transfer trillions of dollars from U.S. taxpayers to corrupt third world countries under the banner of climate change. Another nail in the coffin of the Green New scam. Withdraw from the World Health Organization. Stephen covered that. The WHO is controlled. I did not know this, but it'd be interesting. And this is a very reputable source, just so you all know. I'm not reading from a news station. This is an economic newsletter that I subscribe to that literally they do unbelievable due diligence. Communist China and directed by African terrorist leader who was working on global health passports that would allow, that would control the movement of U.S. citizens. Now that's over. Who is on their own without U.S. funds and U.S. support. I heard something, and I don't remember if it was Jason or who said it, but if any of you know this, or Stephen, if you know this, so during Trump's his first run at the presidency, or not run at presidency, first term in office, he pulled us out of the WHO. We were paying them $500 million, if I'm not mistaken, and all the other countries were paying like $39 million. And I'm going off memory here. Trump said, no, we're not doing that. And the WHO came back and said, all right, well, we'll give you the same $39 million if you want back in. And he kind of didn't do anything. He said, let me think about it. Well, then all the shit happened. COVID happened, the whole 9 yards, the media attacked him. He got, just thrown everything but the kitchen sink, and the kitchen sink thrown at him. But nothing happened. And then Biden comes in. Stephen, let me ask you a question. When Biden was basically, asked, hey, will you guys come back into the WHO and be a contributor? How much do you think Biden paid? Was it 39 million, which was agreed upon from Trump, in his first term, or do you think it was maybe 500 million?
Probably a lot.
500 million. Yeah, Biden came back and said, oh yeah, we'll give you the 500 million. Doesn't matter that everybody else is paying less. Makes no sense. But anyway, complete freeze, and Jason did give me that info. Complete freeze on new government hiring with limited exceptions. Federal workers will have to report to office in person. No more work from home. I already covered all this. I'm just reading the executive order. Shut down the customs border app that allowed illegal immigrants to make appointments at ports of entry where they would be granted entry into the U.S. I didn't know this was happening. Outstanding appointments will be canceled and applicants will be denied entry. Funny, I had no idea about that. There's a lot we don't know. Put an end to the DEI in favor of merit-based hiring and promotion. Trump also declares that there are only two sexes. It's interesting that we're starting to think that there was more. As far as I know, God only created men and women, but he's just letting us know, he had to sign an executive order just to say, hey, there's only two sexes again. Funny. And all the other assumed genders do not exist. This will keep men out of women's sports, locker rooms, and showers. The order goes beyond the sports to include prisons, schools, and any other facilities where the distinction based on genetic sex is appropriate. I also heard that they had tampons in men's bathrooms. Glad that didn't happen during my high school years. That would have really messed me up. Trump will resume construction on the border wall. Trump pardoned over 1,600 J6 defendants, ordered, and this was done even before he took office, and ordered that those in prison be released immediately. He directed his chief of staff. I found this interesting. Jason told me about this. Chief of staff to begin the release as early as the evening of Inauguration Day. Trump said that 80,000 new, you all should be celebrating this, said that the 80,000 new IRS agents hired by Biden would be ordered to stop targeting American taxpayers. He mused that maybe we can put them to work at the border. How many of you want those IRS agents working on the border? I'm all for that. Sign me up. Trump also signed more broadly worded EOs that eliminated government censorship of free speech and the weaponization of government against political adversaries of the previous administration. And that, this is an interesting, I want to stop here real quick, Stephen. An executive order was signed, but yet when you watch CNN or MSNBC and you watch them, I feel like they're still doing that. They're weaponizing the government against political adversaries of the previous administration. Do you think that's still happening? Anyway, think about that. He also said he'd put a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico on February 1. Okay, that's going to be interesting to see how that shapes out. China, this is an interesting one. China, it was supposed to be a 60% tariff, if my memory serves me correct. But we're going to look at it today. think he's revised those numbers. He also said he was going to meet with Putin in the future to pursue the end of the war in Ukraine. I think we'd all like that. Rubio was signed in. There's a lot more here, but I think you all get the drift. Like, I just wanted to kind of cover that because that's a lot of executive orders. That was pretty much just day one. And there's more articles that I have here showing, the rest of the ones that are being signed in and talked about. But yeah, it's interesting. Stephen, any take on that? And then we'll go over to comments.
No, it's yeah, a lot of yeses over there in the comments. A lot of people agreeing with a lot of that. I mean, I think a lot of it's just common sense. I mean, the government censorship. I mean, people like Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, came out and explicitly said, the government told them to shut down certain stories and limit certain stories and what to do. And they had direct contact. So all that was happening. And that's just so anti-American. It's so un-American. It's wild, but it's nothing surprising. If you look at, somehow Biden was put out there by the legacy media as this return to normalcy and this normal president, and it could not have been further from the truth. I mean, and that gets shown by the American people and what they did. They fired Trump because they thought he was over the top and wanted to bring a guy back in to bring normalcy back to the U.S. And they realized they were lied to. And Biden couldn't have been further from that. I mean, just everything that he's done with everything. I mean, with wars, with the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan was just one of the worst moments in American history. I mean, what he did pardoning his entire family and pardoning people like Anthony Fauci and freaking Schiff out in California and some of these just scumbags, like giving them these blanket preemptive pardons, which just 4 years ago, all of these people were on record saying, if Trump pardons his family, he's like a dictator. You can't do this kind of thing. And they all just received these preemptive pardons. And they all were like, if they receive them, they're guilty. So these people are clearly guilty. So, it's just wild to see everything they did. I mean, he went on to, he commuted the sentence of, what was it, 34 out of 37 federal prisoners that were on death row, like just completely commuted their sentences. Like, what did this guy do? Like, it's wild to see. And so now Trump's coming back like, okay, we're going to stop this crap. We're going to get back to free speech. We're going to get back to America, freedom, growth, innovation, the space program. Let's do things. Let's be productive and be successful. And people love it, man. It's a really cool thing to see happen in real time.
It really is. It's wild to see. It's a breath of fresh air is really what it is. Jason, remember you had sent me that thing on what he said you had found that article. Did you text that to me or did you email that to me? Yeah. You text that to me. All right, folks, Jason did a bunch of research on something and I want to show it because it's right in line with that. And it's right on this pardon thing because the word hypocrite is the only word that's appropriate. So
yeah, while you're pulling it up, Chris, Morgan
I'm
Sharp
send it to you, Stephen, so you can pull it up because it'll be quicker.
He said there are many constitutional scholars question the preemptive pardons and, whether they're allowed or not, it's interesting. But even if they are, what happens is, from what I've read at least and understand, is now that they've been pardoned, they cannot be found guilty of any crime. And so pleading the Fifth Amendment that doesn't allow you to incriminate yourself, pleading the Fifth is now thrown out the window. They're not allowed to plead the Fifth anymore because they can't be incriminated anyways. And so what they're saying is, hey, Trump and the Department of Justice, they're not going to just forget about these people. They're going to go at them. They're going to go after them and they're going to bring them on. And now they can't claim the Fifth anymore. So they're actually going to have to incriminate themselves and others, and they can't protect themselves that way. So maybe it's going to end up being something that backfires on them, which would just be, the cherry on top with that.
Yeah, I agree. I sent that to you while you're pulling that up because this would be a really interesting article to look at. And then it just, between the pardons, this video you're going to see and everything that they said and then they went against, I mean, that just makes them completely hypocritical. I mean,
yeah. And somebody said on the right over there, too much politics. Listen, if this isn't the show for you,
what's in the news?
We do 6 different shows every single week. This is the one we do get into politics. And the reason for it is we talk about what's going on in the world, what's going on in the news. Obviously a big political time right now. We have a brand new president, 47th president of the United States, a lot of changes occurring in this country. And so this is what's going on this last week. It's called What the F Happened? What the F Happened during the last week? That's why this show exists. So if you'd like to come on one of our other shows, just an example today at 1 p.m. Eastern, we have Wealth Webinar. We're going to get into investing in private funds. What's the difference in Reg A versus Reg D funds? How do we take control of our money through the infinite banking concept, becoming a bank and flow it into some of these different private types of investments, and whether that's right for you or not. So join us at 1 p.m. Eastern to learn all about that. At 4:30 p.m. Eastern today, we have what's called Ask Me Anything, which is an hour-long show with our money mentors where we just answer questions from you, the audience, about investing, about IBC, about becoming the bank, about real estate investing. And here's the cool thing about the 4:30 show is it's fun. We joke around. We have a good time with the audience, and it's happy hour. So if you enjoy drinking, as Trump says, and I don't know if you caught this executive order, but Trump did come out yesterday and said it's okay to have a couple beers at work. So I don't know. That's Ask Me Anything today at 4:30 Eastern. So with that said, join us in our other shows. We do 6 different shows every single week, but just wanted to mention that. All right,
yeah.
I pulled this up
real quick on that, Stephen, before we get off this afternoon for the Wealth Webinar. I feel like we did a really special thing. I mean, we're on a new thing. Shauna kind of set out to really make Wealth Webinar way more informational, way better, and a lot more preparation into it than me just kind of drawing on the whiteboard. So one of the things we're going to show today, and a lot of people ask us this, is why would I ever do the infinite banking concept when I could just invest in the S&P and make more? Like they're comparing, the policy, the specially designed whole life, to the S&P 500 or any investment for that matter. And they're saying, well, I'd make more over here than I would putting it into the whole life. Well, today, what we're going to do is literally debunk that. You're absolutely right. You probably would make more doing private loans, doing real estate, doing the S&P 500, investing in anything, as a standalone versus putting money into a whole life policy. If and only if you were literally just putting money in one or the other and comparing them. But you see, the infinite banking concept and the way these policies are designed, it allows you to put money in the policy first, immediately deploy those funds or a high percentage of those funds into an investment and make money twice. So, our friend Caleb Gilliam says, it's not this or that, it's this and that, because it is the and asset. The policy will never get you excited. The returns you're going to get in the policy will be better than what you get in a bank account or a CD or a money market, but it's never going to rock the house. But taking the money from the policy, deploying that into things like paying off debt, buying cars, investing in real estate, lending on real estate like Private Money Club does, or anything else, doing 2 at the same time allows your dollars to work twice instead of once. Today on the Wealth Webinar, what we're going to do is we're going to show you the mathematics. I don't think we've ever done this. And we're going to use one of my policies with a real life scenario of me investing into a Reg A fund. We're going to explain the difference between Reg A's and Reg D's. That would be the information. We're going to talk about an investment I recently made and the due diligence around it. But we're going to show you the mathematics over a 15-year time frame and the difference between putting money in a bank account and then investing it in this fund, this Reg A fund, versus putting money in the policy and investing the exact same dollars in this Reg A fund. Dollar for dollar, everything the same investment. And you're going to see a 15-year trajectory of why using the policy and the infinite banking concept does, in every scenario, make mathematical sense over the long haul. Now, does it make mathematical sense in the first 3 years? Maybe not, but we're going to go over that today. So today's Wealth Webinar would be the one you all want to be at. So go to chrisnaugle.com. It's Naugle. Just scroll down and register to be on the Wealth Webinar at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you can't make it, no problem. It's recorded and put on my YouTube, but you definitely would benefit from it today. So get that registration, cost you nothing. So we'll see you there. Shameless plug. Sorry, we had to get that out of the way, but let's keep rolling through this. There was a question here that I had, and Morgan Sharp was talking about the fires. We haven't really talked about the fires.
I have that video. Do you want to stay on the pardons real quick?
Yeah. Sorry. Before we get to that, see, this is what happens. I go down a rabbit hole and then I forget where I came from. Anyway, play the video on the pardons.
Yeah, absolutely. And while I'm pulling this up right now, I mean, Trump is doing his own pardons. He pardoned all the January 6ers, I believe all of them, which, is a move he promised to do, and he kept it. And also kind of another promise he kept that is a little more controversial would be the pardon of Ross William Albright, who was the founder and creator of Silk Road, which was a illegal website that basically facilitated illegal transactions. But the Department of Justice kind of set an example of him, gave him 2 lifetime sentences plus 40 years or something, and some ridiculous sentence. He served 10 years, and basically Trump said, okay, that's enough, and gave him his life back. So interesting to see that. But let me play this real fast on these preemptive pardons, which has never been done before, and I think sets, like the Democrats like to tend to do, is set a terrible precedent for the future. But let me play this real fast just to show that hypocrisy, which is unbelievable.
Reportedly asking his staff whether he can issue preemptive pardons for himself, his family members, Rudy Giuliani. There's a simple answer: no. No, Mr. President, that would be a gross abuse of the presidential pardon authority.
Do you think that those pardons are appropriate? Do you think they would be legal?
I don't think they are appropriate at all.
So this is an administration that came in grifting, and it appears it's going to leave the same way.
Is there an innocent explanation for someone to seek preemptive pardons for family members? Would you do that if you knew you were innocent and just worried about outside forces?
The answer to that is going to be no. And, if you haven't done anything wrong, you sit there and go, what do you need a preemptive pardon for?
It begs the question, why is there a need for a pardon here in the first place? People who've done nothing wrong do not need to be pardoned. And to me, it would raise flags for other prosecutors and other investigators, state prosecutors, not bound by the pardon, to take a close look.
They say that they haven't done anything wrong. Well, why would you be pardoning them preemptively if you didn't think they might have done something wrong?
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of
all
crime?
For sure.
Innocent person. Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person.
But no, here it's an effort not only to prospectively pardon people for things they have not yet been charged with and may never be charged with, but also it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family. And so there is a self-interest at play as well. And I think that makes this quite unique.
You're based.
For the record, he just all in it there, but he just received his own preemptive pardon, as well as the entire Biden family, which he was raging against that Trump was going to do. Trump never did. And every single one of these people we just saw silent now, approving it. Oh, Biden should have done that. It's a good thing. I mean, the hypocrisy, the saying people say you don't hate the legacy media enough. I mean, you cannot shout that loud enough, in my opinion. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I don't know if Trey Woodford's still on here, but Trey, just know I got your number written down. We'll have somebody reach out to you about that. I know you're probably not still here because you said too much politics. But again, as Stephen mentioned, this show, WTF, is a show where we rant, we rave, and we argue about what's in the news. And if you look at the news, every news station, it's politics, it's executive orders, it's inauguration. It's just this. That's what's par for the course in this. And we try to mix in some financial stuff, but I totally get it. It's not for everybody, but hey, join us next week and maybe we'll be talking more about the markets, but it just happens to be, this is what's in the news today.
People telling us, don't make us watch any more of that. Please stop.
I don't
want to see it either. Trust me, guys. Trust me.
So here's one thing, and I kind of want to finish this up because I know we're in the final minute here, but Trump is saying, he's considering a 10% tariff on China beginning as soon as February. Now, if I recall before, he was going to do a 60% tariff, which definitely would be inflationary, would definitely force, industry here to the U.S. But I don't think a 10% tariff is going to get it done. It's not going to close that deficit. I mean, literally China, what they would do over there is they would just reduce their price by 10%, but we're not going to see the benefit of that at all. That would keep things going. That would keep geopolitical tensions from flaring up, with trade. But I don't know, Stephen, what's your take on this? So I'm trying to not talk politics and talk tariffs, which tariffs directly will impact the markets, the economy, and jobs here in the U.S. But now he's kind of going and saying 10%. Maybe this is just for February 1st, and then he's going to lay it out. I mean, I haven't dug deep into this, but have you, or has anyone else?
I haven't. And
25% was Mexico and in Canada. So why would we put tariffs on Mexico and Canada more than China? That makes no bloody sense.
Well, you got to remember, Trump's typically looking, 3-4 steps ahead and playing this chess game of, okay, let me, say one thing and hold this carrot over here and dangle this and negotiate this way and negotiate that way. And so it's kind of hard to know exactly what he's doing, until he does lay out that full plan. Like you said, maybe we see that in February or what that might look like. And does the same thing on foreign policy when it comes to, dealing with some of these countries like Russia and the Middle East and Ukraine and everything else. So we'll see where that goes. Definitely something to watch and pay attention to. Sometimes it's hard to understand, why, just up front though.
Yeah. I just thought I'd bring that. I just want to bring that up because there's got to be more to that story, but
right.
That's all that's in the news is they're just talking about that. So I'm going to try to find some newsletters and some white papers on like this change, because I think all of you would agree, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense that we tax our neighbor Canada or tariff our neighbor Canada and Mexico 25, and then China gets off with a passive 10. Like there's no way that is the whole story. So we're going to dive deeper into that. Let's see, just trying to see here what other stories we have. Open the borders. So this is Jay Steele coming in. I want you to really think about this. Step 1, they have built massive detention centers all around the U.S. Step 2, open the borders. Step 3, collect illegal aliens and detain them before deportation. Yeah. Yeah, I'll give that some thought, I guess.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, it's day 3 today, so we'll continue to keep an eye on, what's going on, the news, and bring you these stories. I mean, it's fascinating. It's one of those things that's like, you don't want to get involved in politics because at the end of the day, it's kind of out of our control. It's one of those things. Let me control my life, my aspects that I can actually make a difference. And politics is so above our daily lives, but at the same time, it's important to understand what's going on. What's happening in the world. And so that's why we try and, get these stories, bring it to you 1 hour a week. And hopefully, you guys all appreciate that. And we appreciate you guys being on the show. It's good to be back in 2025. We're talking with some television people right now on starting to syndicate this show out to some local television channels and whatnot. So we'll see where we go in 2025 with this, but we appreciate all of you guys being on here every day, Chris, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really want to give a shout out to each and every single one of you, from Instagram to YouTube to Facebook, for all your comments today. This is probably the first WTF where I could not for the life of me keep up with your comments. So, thank you so much for commenting. That makes the show so much better because it brings different dynamics in. And listen, even if it's negative, we'll talk about it because that's what this show is about. It's about the rant, the rave, and the arguments and the debates. So I love it. With that being said, folks, join us this afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern for Wealth Webinar. It's surely going to be a good one, and I can't wait to see you all there. Go to chrisnaugle.com and register. Outside of that, thanks everybody for joining us. And
all right, come on, Chris. I got a special outro video for today. Okay, so I'm going to play the special outro video. We'll see you guys 1 o'clock Eastern. But with that said, see you next week on What the F. Turn up your volume.
Oh my goodness.
There it is. There's the stream. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everybody.